Welcome to Real Time Review. I'm your host, Jesse Nussman. With me, as always, fellow Atlanta film critic Jason Evans. And Jason, it's the start of summer movie season.
It's officially here.
That magical time of the year where we escape the 120-degree heat here in Atlanta and flock to the indoor air conditioning to just watch anything. But this week,
hopefully we'll be watching good stuff this summer.
I would argue that audiences have a good one to start off the summer movie season because this week we are talking about The Fall Guy, a new action comedy starring Ryan Gosling as a lovable stuntman who has to kind of become a private detective to locate the missing star at the center of the movie he's working on, all while also winning over the heart of an old fling played by Emily Blunt, who is also the director of the movie.
That's me, Colt Sievers, and this is my hero's journey.
Or just start from the top.
They have really good chemistry in this film.
Really good chemistry. This is now like the second movie in the last month that kind of feels just like an old throwback of like movie stars. Like it's not like franchise sequels. It's just sort of like, you want to see Ryan Gosling, you want to see Emily Blunt, just be charismatic and fun on screen. Here's your chance.
I mean, it is IP. Let's be clear that this is based on a TV show that probably came out before you were born.
I was about to say, this is real. You need to educate the millennial about something.
Right, this is deep cut. Lee Majors, famously the star of The $6 Million Man, was on a TV show called Big Valley, which is even before my time, and also did this show in the early 80s called The Fall Guy. And they have great chemistry. I think that Ryan Gosling, I don't know his exact paycheck for this movie. No matter what it was not enough, because I know you like this film more than I did.
Yeah.
I think that Ryan Gosling saves what could be a pretty mediocre movie with his charm and his charisma.
I do not disagree with that at all. I actually kind of like remarked to someone walking out, like, I can imagine a much more like insufferable version of this movie that not to throw any shade, but also to throw shade at a star we'll probably be talking about a couple more times this summer. The Ryan Reynolds version of this movie is like nails on a chalkboard.
Oh, I don't know, man. I like Ryan Reynolds. And I think he and Ryan Gosling have a lot of the same energy. They're able to laugh at themselves, but they're also able to be physical and even if they're not doing the stunts, do good action scenes and stuff like that. Look, to me, this is a very mediocre script. There's nothing about it that isn't incredibly predictable. I thought I would laugh more than I did, but with those negatives already said, not as funny as I expected, certainly not a script that is particularly witty or clever. It is still a very enjoyable time at the movies because of Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
He is having a moment right now, let me tell you.
And I think this is kind of like a perfect use of him of like, I'm sure you remember that weird period where it was like, Ryan Gosling needs to be tortured in every movie, needs to be super serious. And this is him more in the mode of like Barbie last summer or The Nice Guys, that really underrated comedy he was in. Russell Crowe.
My wife at one point said, is he playing Ken in this movie?
Right. He's just that kind of like lovable, schlubby goofball energy that he gives off in interviews. I love that he's just sort of embracing that as like that's his movie star persona at this point. And
it's a great persona. It works.
And I agree with you. Even if this movie is not like laugh out loud hilarious, or I think the mystery plot gets a little like ridiculous at sometimes.
It's not good.
It's just it is a movie that the pleasure of it is all just sort of like how charmed are you by Ryan Gosling on screen, and how charmed are you by him and Emily Blunt as well?
Well, and the other thing to add is this film was directed by a former stuntman, the same guy who directed John Wick.
He also did Hobbs and Shaw. Right. What was the Charlize Theron action movie? Atomic Blonde.
That was the one I was trying to bring up as well. David Leitch is his name. He's a very competent director, and he's really at his best in doing action stuff. And he is someone who loves stunts and stuntmen. And this film is in many ways a tribute to the stuntman industry. Virtually everything we see is a practical stunt done by real people. Very early on in the film, Ryan Gosling's character does a stunt where he barrel rolls a car 8.5 times. It's a really impressive stunt, and it is actually a record. Like they set a stuntman record in making this movie of an 8.5 roll barrel roll in a car, which is outrageous. It's a film that they openly talk about the fact that there isn't an Oscar for stunts.
It just made me think the
There
whole
must-
time about
please?
that really embarrassing moment at the Oscars this past year where they like had that little montage of like, we want to recognize all the great work
stunts.
that stunt people do. Anyway, we're not giving out an award for you guys, but we
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
your
absurd.
work.
I mean, if there's any one thing I would say the Oscars needs probably more than anything else, it's a stunts award. They probably also need a casting award. You know, try and
Well, one of those definitely is coming, but
yeah, exactly. Casting is coming, but this is a film that has great stunts in it. If you enjoy stunts, please go see it. I think that some of the hand-to-hand action is sort of like, feels pretty choreographed and such.
It's not on the same level as like the John Wick movies or
it's
like
not.
the Raid movies or stuff like that, but you know, it works both as an action movie as well as, you know, if you just want a fun kind of hangout movie. The thing it made me think of, even though I would argue it's not quite as good as this movie I'm about to compare it to, but something like Beverly Hills Cop, of like the kind of action movie plot of it, sort of it is kind of disposable and doesn't matter, but you're basically just watching like a really fun movie star kind of crack jokes the entire time.
So my comparison would be, because I don't think it's nearly as funny as Beverly Hills Cop and doesn't have nearly as good of a sort of backstory carrying it through. 21 and 22 Jump Street, both of those films, I think, had a lot of the same energy, especially down to the somewhat bungling bad guys that they're running up against. I felt like it was very much in the vein of those, and if you're, and those are much more contemporary,
Right.
you know, potentially relevant to our audience, certainly your generation.
Sure, people have seen Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes. But if you liked either of those films, I think this is a movie right in that wheelhouse as well.
So let's talk about some of the other summer movies coming out. I'm curious, is there, you and I were kind of talking before we got on camera of like, do you feel like this is going to kind of be like a fun summer at the movies, kind of an underwhelming one? Like, looking at the calendar, it doesn't feel like we have like a Barbie or an Oppenheimer, like one movie that feels like everyone in the culture is sort of like circled on their calendars of like, what, I got to make sure to go see this when this comes out.
Well, in fairness, I don't know that we knew that Barbie and Oppenheimer were going to turn into a cultural phenomenon at the beginning of May last summer. It happened on its own. It happened as a result of two movies coming out on the same day that were films that were both incredibly high quality motion pictures, and as a result, they built something together. I don't think we're going to see anything like that happen this year. I'm not sure we've seen anything like it happen in the past as well. That doesn't mean this is going to be a bad summer. I think there are a number of films that are really, really interesting this year, and the unanswered question is, we're coming off of a bunch of strikes in Hollywood,
right,
that push productions back, that maybe push productions to go faster than they maybe wanted to, that maybe interrupted some scripts and some shooting.
It's kind of our first taste of like the rest of the year is going to feel real thin because of like what it was sort of already in the can before the strike started.
Yeah, and I just wonder, you know, does it end up being, the stuff we got is the really good stuff that they were able to make in the, you know, right kind of way, or is it stuff that maybe was rushed a bit as a result of either them knowing the strikes were coming on or having to get stuff together quickly after the strikes ended? And I can't tell you the answer to that until I've seen the movies.
Right. So what are some titles that you're very excited for?
I mean, I am a guy, you and I have discussed this before, I'm very much a commercial guy.
You're our blockbuster expert.
I do like blockbusters. I like the movies that a lot of people get to see because I love talking about movies with people, and when I bring up a film that no one's seen before, the conversation's very one-sided. So I'm very excited for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Okay.
I mean, that's an obvious choice, but we have suffered through a bunch of bad comic book superhero movies over the past couple of years, and everything I'm hearing, everything I'm seeing about this movie says to me that it's going to be really good.
It'll be a real test for my Ryan Reynolds allergy that I will continue to tease out on this show. The one I'm probably most excited for is Furiosa, which is George Miller returning to the Mad Max universe. I'm trying to sort of like level my expectations because Fury Road was such a like lightning in a bottle.
Movie. I don't know if there's any way he can be as good as he was there, but he's going to try.
Like 50% what that movie is, like George Miller is such a like crazy wild man that like that kind of heavy metal energy is just what I crave in the summer months of like, that's my idea of like a big like blow you to the back of your seats kind of action movie with just sort of like the most wild craziness that you've ever seen.
And Furiosa is certainly on my list of films that I really want to see this summer as well. The reason is a little different than you. I am entranced with Anya Taylor-Joy, who's the main character. I think she has She has one of the most interesting faces and eyes in all of Hollywood. And I think Chris Hemsworth is a really interesting choice here.
I thought you were about to say you're real entranced by Chris Hemsworth's nose and all the promotion material for this movie.
No, I just think Hemsworth is someone who, again, falling back on that sort of that blockbuster mentality, I think he puts a lot into trying to promote his films and into making an enjoyable experience for fans. And I'm very optimistic about that movie.
What's maybe like a smaller movie that, or something that maybe like our audience doesn't know is coming, or maybe like it hasn't been blasted in their face at every game they watch on TV?
So I'll give you two of them that I think are kind of interesting. One is Fly Me to the Moon, which is Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. Woody Harrelson's also in it. It's about the space race. It's about the U.S. trying to promote, in the 1960s, trying to promote astronauts and the task of going to the moon and getting the whole country behind that effort. I am a sucker for any sort of kind of true historical space science kind of film. I really love those kind of movies, and this looks right up that alley. It also looks like a film that has a lot of humor to it. It's somewhat similar to The Fall Guy.
Right. Will people embrace we just want movie star movies for our summer blockbusters?
That's exactly what it is. And then the other one that I'm very intrigued by, and I'm not saying I know that this is going to be good, because this guy's a little hit or miss. I'm really interested in Trap. It is M. Night. It's M. Night Shyamalan's newest film. The story here is a guy who is a serial killer goes to a concert with his daughter. So he's a terrible person.
Played by Josh Hartnett, right?
Played by Josh Hartnett. Yes, thank you. So Josh Hartnett goes to a concert with his daughter, and his daughter, of course, doesn't know he's a serial killer. And over the course of him being at this concert, he discovers that the entire concert is a setup and a trap to catch this unknown serial killer.
Yeah.
And so he has to evade the police and find a way to escape. The thing that makes it really interesting to me is the film, I don't think, hides the fact that he's a bad dude.
Right.
He is.
Or is he? Because it is an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Right. Maybe Night will have a twist for us. I don't know. I mean, Night always has a twist for us. But I'm really interested in the idea of us going to a movie where, from the start, we know that the big star, the main character that we're looking at, is not someone that we're rooting for. And how do we respond to that? And how does M. Night build a story around what probably should be a really bad character, but on the other hand, we meet his daughter, and I'm just really intrigued at what he's trying to put together.
I've kind of been won over by M. Night in recent years. I know he was a bit of a punchline for a while, but
he had a bad streak, but I
no
think
one
his career's
is making
gone
crazy
like this.
swings in the way that this guy is, and I love how he's just sort of embraced of I'm a totally unpretentious genre movie director, and my movies are silly, my movies are wild, for better or for worse, and I love kind of going into his stuff not knowing what to expect. Two that I wanted to kind of wrap up throwing up at you that are kind of smaller. My maybe weird perverse pick is I'm really interested in what this Yorgos Lanthimos movie is going to be, Kind of Kindness. Which, from what I've heard, sounds like a return to some of the, let's say, meaner movies that he's done earlier in his career.
Folks should understand this is the guy who did Poor Things. He did My Favorite. Those are probably his two biggest commercial hits, but he has done some very strange stuff in the past.
It excites me, the idea that he is, taking the sort of power, for lack of a better word, or cachet that he's built up with these two Oscar-nominated movies. Is now I'm going to do a version of kind of my earlier stuff, but with big stars like Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons and Willem Dafoe. And then, me as a horror movie guy, I'm excited for Maxine, which is, the third movie in this now little A24 trilogy of horror
universe,
movies.
I guess?
With Mia Goth at the center. And I just think it looks like fun. It looks like a nifty, mix of LA noir with some giallo movie and the whole 80s aesthetic of it. And I thought those first two that she was in were fun. And I don't know, I think it'd be really cool if one of the kind of late surprises of the summer is just this kind of fun, nasty horror movie that everyone gets to go and soak up in the theater.
Well, I'm going to be real intrigued. I have to tell you that when I looked at the trailer for Maxine, it didn't look as horror to me as the earlier films that they made together, the Mia Goth and
Ty West.
The earlier films that they made together. It seems like it may be a little more of a mystery kind of feel. There will certainly be some blood, I'm sure of that. People will die.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it's quite as much of a horror, and that intrigues me because I'm not a huge horror fan. And look, we haven't even mentioned. Look, there obviously are big sequels. Inside Out 2. There's another Despicable Me coming along. Twisters. There's a sequel to the original Twister.
I'm open for Twisters.
Yeah. The effects look incredible in that.
Or just, Glenn Powell chasing tornadoes across the American West.
I feel like Hollywood keeps on trying to make Glenn Powell into a huge star. He's going to get there at some point. Well, he may already be there.
Let me drop a hint, because there is a movie that we will probably talk about in the coming weeks called Hitman that is coming out, that Glenn Powell is at the center of. That is a Netflix movie that I saw last year at a festival, and I just want to tease to everyone, it is the Glenn Powell show. If Hollywood is not throwing every project at this guy after that thing comes out, then something's wrong. Is basically the hint I'm going to give.
Speaking of Netflix, there's a really weird thing happening this summer, which is that Netflix is releasing a new Beverly Hills Cop movie.
That's right.
It's not coming to theaters.
Come on, Netflix.
It's so weird. I don't understand
money on the table.
I don't understand. It's Eddie Murphy. It's Judge Ryan. They bring all the characters back. It is a Beverly Hills Cop film, and they're only putting it on Netflix. I really don't get that. To me, that's a bad sign. If it was any good at all, I think it would be getting a theatrical release.
Well, Jason, we will talk about all those movies and more, probably starting off next week. I think we're going to discuss our return to the Planet of the Apes. What do you think the apes have been up to?
I don't know, but their visual effects are amazing.
Okay. Well, until that comes, we will see you at the movies.